I am Rachel Dworkin from the Chemung County Historical Society, and I am here today interviewing.
Dr. Oren Steinitz, Rabbi of Congregation Kolami.
Okay, and this is for the COVID Memory Project. Today is June 4th, and we're going to get started. So, Rabbi, how has the congregation adapted to the situation in terms of performing services, that sort of thing?
Well, I think that we have responded very, very quickly compared to I think other synagogues in the country, and I really don't know what's happening with the churches around here, but we have been having strictly online services since the end of March, right? And we closed the synagogue for any in-person services basically as soon as the the virus hit New York. We have thankfully been very, very quick to get on Zoom and other platforms in order to have services. We've had our Passover Seder by webinar. That was not as successful, but it was some strange platform that I would not recommend. And we're back to Zoom ever since. We have closed the office generally to the public, although because we only have two employees there, the two administrators from the synagogue and the JCF, they're still in the building and they're still working from the building with social distancing and masks, etc., etc., etc. As services are conducted by myself and Malachi Doan, and we always get there. We scrub in, as we say, wash our hands. We try and sanitize all the equipment. The small sanctuary looks like a TV recording studio right now. It's a little disturbing. And we are currently in the process of figuring out how are we going to have online high holiday services, because we do not anticipate reopening and until there is a vaccine in place.
Okay, so there have been several holidays that have happened over the course of this crisis. So were you closed for Purim?
No, Purim was actually the last week we had in-person services. I
Okay.
mean, no, that's not exactly true. We had Purim services, I think that was Monday or Tuesday or something like that. And then I got sick that week. Who knows if that was COVID or not. So I did not lead services that Friday, and Malachi led it on his own. And then we closed.
Okay.
So Purim was basically the last holiday and the last real large gathering we had in the synagogue. Then we had Passover and Shavuot, which were conducted entirely online.
Okay, so why don't you explain what normally happens at Passover versus what happened at Passover, and then do the same for Shavuot.
Okay, so Passover, we usually have our Seder meal on the second night of Passover, which is one of our biggest events, actually. We usually have about 120, 130 people for the event. It includes a pretty elaborate, nice meal. Obviously, we could not, feed people by Zoom. The technology is not there yet, but I anticipate that by the next pandemic, we'll be able to do that. So, and Passover Seder includes our retelling of the Exodus from Egypt. We tried having people sign up to do readings, and because of the platform that we used, it did not work all that well online. Because we anticipated a whole lot more people than usual, we went through with this other platform other than Zoom, because our Zoom account only allows for 100 people, or 100 sign-ins, that's more importantly. That ended up being a mistake because we only had like 40 people sign in for some reason. But so the Passover Seder was not as successful. I led it from my house on our, kitchen table or dining room table. We did the first part, then we all took a break for the meal. Nobody wants to look at anybody else eating on the screen. That's a little weird. And then we came back for the after dinners songs and celebration. Less people stayed, obviously, especially since it became very clear that the platform is just not successful. But overall, people seem to appreciate it, and that's what matters. And this is the one thing that I cannot emphasize enough. A lot of people, we've been getting a lot of feedback from, especially our elderly congregants, who have been phenomenal at adapting to Zoom, which is surprising and encouraging, about how much they appreciate all our online offerings, which allows them to feel a little less isolated right now. So Shavuot is a little different, because usually the tradition is that on Shavuot Eve you have an online, sorry, I have online on my mind, all night study session. Since we have an elderly congregation, then who goes to bed at 8. Usually, we do not have an all-night session, but we usually have classes back to back. Last year, I think we finished a little after midnight, which for the old timers is pretty impressive. This year, because we decided that it's almost impossible to expect people to sit in front of the computer for so long, we decided to have these quick sessions after the Friday night service, and we had 4 teachers who gave about 15-minute offerings instead of full classes, which again was very, very nice. It's not the same, but it's fun. Yeah, but it was, and people appreciated it. We actually had a guest speaker from Ithaca who spoke from her house, and somebody from her house in Corning, and 2 of us from Elmira, me and our executive director Paul Solon. So that's how we did Shavuot. Again, Shavuot is also characterized by eating a lot of dairy food, but we could not really send cheesecake over Zoom. Oh, one more thing about Passover. We did offer people, because we have our Jewish food festival that was canceled because of the virus. We had lots of chicken soup left over in the freezers, so we did a food sale before Passover, so people could have their chicken soup for the meal.
Oh, if only I'd known. Oh well.
So not on the mailing list. Come on.
So the food festival was canceled. Mm-hmm. That is a major fundraiser for the synagogue and the JCF. So what are you doing about that?
No easy way to say it. We're taking a very big financial hit like everybody else. It's not only it's the food festival, and it's our annual fundraiser gala, the cocktails and nash, or whatever they call it this year, or the arts and something. We could not have any of these events. We still are not really sure how we're going to recover this money, or if we're going to recover this money. We're digging into our emergency funds, but you know what? This is what emergency funds are for. I don't think there's a better definition of an emergency than we have right now. Got to say that the Community Foundation has been very helpful with and very generous with grants that allowed us to get some technology in the building for streaming.
Okay, good.
And we had all sorts of donations from the Penn York Valley community that to help with that as well. We will have to do better next year, but you know what? It's also not really a great time to ask people for donations, because we know that everybody is struggling. It's we do what we can.
Okay. So you mentioned that a lot of the elderly members of the community have really been taking to Zoom and appreciating what you're doing. Have you noticed attendance at services or at classes? Has that remained steady? Has that fallen? How has that changed over the course of the illness?
Well, interestingly, our Friday night services pretty much tripled their attendance since the beginning of this crisis. And turned out, and this is something interesting that we found, that we have a lot of members because we're serving such a wide area. There are tons of people who live like in Mansfield or in or Tawanda who are members, and apparently they would be very happy coming to services every week. They just don't feel like driving 45 minutes each direction. And the online services gave them an opportunity to reconnect with their community in ways that they could not done before. And you know what? We're gonna keep streaming even after this is over because it looks like we found a need.
So this has changed the way that you think about building community and conducting services.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Because if we're counting success by butts in the seats, then now we're counting little squares of on the screen. But looks like this is not only a legit but very effective way of building community and building relationships.
So the synagogue also has youth programs for children and educational stuff. Is that any of that ongoing? I know that like you're doing Talmud classes because I do Talmud classes, but what about the other educational programming?
Well, we have Sunday school classes online. Attendance has been abysmal at best. I think that families are too overwhelmed with everything else, and just one more thing, because I have little kids, and I know that online learning during the week is incredibly taxing, and I really can't blame anybody for not wanting to do yet another thing.
Makes sense.
Especially everybody is totally zoomed out by the weekend. We finished one class that we used to have on Sunday mornings for adults, but it was a very basic intro to Judaism for people that lack Jewish education, and that was very well attended on Zoom. The class ended a few weeks ago, and there's one in the making for probably July, maybe August. So there will be more adult education opportunities. Also, Paul Solon has been having these Torah study groups every Saturday at 4:00, and attendance has been okay. It's not great, like I think 7 or 8 people, but it's a steady group, and people seem to be enjoying it very, very much. So that is a new offering that we did not used to.
So how many of these things do you think you're going to continue? You said you wanted to continue doing online services. What about these online classes, or just like the 4:00 study group? Is that something that's going to happen in person, or is this something that you're still working out? You don't know yet.
We don't really know yet, because everything changes every week. Everything changes all the time. We don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. We don't know how the world is going to look once we're out of it. But generally, I think that there's lots of more stuff that we'll be willing to do online than before. Board meetings especially. I mean, do people really need to drive 45 minutes for a board meeting? I don't know. Guess not. It works just as well on Zoom.
Yeah.
Do people... The online classes, I do think that they work better in person, the classes, but can we try a hybrid model? Maybe have a computer in the middle of the table and allow people to zoom in? Maybe. I don't know. It's worth a shot.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how it's gonna work, but you know what? It definitely opened our mind to the possibility, even if it's not something that we're gonna continue exactly in the same way. Now we know we have more ways to engage people, and more ways that we can keep in touch with people who are otherwise shut in.
Yeah. So, uh, how has this impacted the community other than both keeping them apart and bringing them together? Have we lost anybody from the synagogue, or
Mm,
no? We've been
خمسة شو بتصل no, no, not to jinx it, but no. I've been very fortunate. I've conducted one funeral since COVID started. It was not a member. Did not really know the family. It was a very strange event, I have to say. I mean, I've been to, because it was just the deceased woman's husband and her two grown children, the gravedigger, and myself at the cemetery. It was in Horseheads. I I said to somebody, I've been to homeless people's funerals where there were more people. I mean, it was on one hand very, very moving, and on the other hand just absolutely bizarre, because this was not a woman that was um I don't know, that did not have a family or did not have any friends. She was very, very well known in the Horsehead School District. She had lots of friends, lots of family that could have come in, but she was, just because of the circumstances, she had a funeral with three people.
hmm,
That's bizarre and heartbreaking, and yet very special at the same time.
okay. Um, so how has this impacted the Jewish community in the country overall, or is that not something you can speak to?
I can speak a little bit. I mean, it certainly opened a lot of conversations because, and this is mainly due to the financial impact of the crises. There's a lot of talk about whether or not the Jewish institutions in the country are as, um, hmm, should I say it, as efficient as they could be, right? Do we really need all these federations? Do we really need Jewish movements with this really heavy infrastructure, with so many buildings and so many staff people and so many departments? On the other hand, do we want to fire all these people? There have been talks about different movements merging, or at least sharing some resources, which might be a very good thing, because they have been resisting this for decades. The president of the URJ, of the Union for Reform Judaism, talked about the possibility of maybe joining forces in one way or another with the conservative and reconstructionist movements. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but at least this conversation is starting. So it's still early to assess what the impact is going to be, but everybody agrees that there's going to be a pretty major impact, and the morning after we'll see a very different Jewish community in terms of institutions.
Okay. So now on to the personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You had talked about how you have two small children.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going?
It's going.
So how old are they?
Eitan is 9 and Eliana is 5.
Okay, and they're
Uh,
both in school normally.
yeah.
So they're doing online
Mm.
classes.
They're doing online classes, and the school district, and they go to Finn Academy, and they have been trying to adapt to the reality of online classes. It's going better with the older one than with the little one,
Okay.
but and I think it's like everywhere else. I think it's very apparent that the school is trying their best, but they don't really know how to make the best out of the situation. It is it is a very it's very taxing, I think, on the parents to basically turn into homeschool experts and to, discipline your kids 24/7. That being said, I think that the kids have been extremely well adaptive to the situation. They are playing together a lot more, obviously, because they don't have any choice because they can't play with their friends. They've become very, very good friends altogether, and it's obvious that they miss their friends. They miss school. They talk about school all the time, that they want to go back, which is amazing. But they have also been, quite mature in their understanding of, this is what we got right now, and ain't nothing much we can do about it.
So, what kinds of things have you guys been doing as a family to like keep sane? um, Watching a lot of TV, going for walks. What are you up to?
Watching a lot of TV and going for walks, because what else is out there? We're starting having movie nights occasionally, which we've never really done before. We're taking a lot of walks in the neighborhood, a lot of walks near the river. When the mosquitoes are not eating me alive, it's seems to like me better than they like everybody else in the family. Um, Trying to do some sports, like some exercise in the house, just to keep the blood moving and avoid gaining the full COVID-19. The kids are doing, like, my oldest started using something like Facebook Messenger for kids, where he can talk to his classmates in a safe environment. My kid has also been doing something called Out School, which is like these extracurricular classes for kids from all over the country, and he's enjoying them immensely. With the little one, it's a little more difficult to find stuff that engages her, other than just a lot of TV and a lot of pretend play and stuff like that she really enjoys. But as a family, I mean, we try to do things like, go out for ice cream every once in every blue moon, but we're still very, very aware of the fact that as much as we are careful, it's still not 100%
Mm.
safe. So we try to limit these outings to a minimum, while trying to keep sane.
So, what have you told them about what is happening?
So it's funny, because a while ago we did this. Somebody sent on Facebook. I'm trying to look for it now. This set of questions to ask your kids about what do they know
Hmm.
about the situation. I'm not exactly sure how I can find it, because they know that there's a virus, and and especially they know that it's very harmful for older people, and this is why we have to stay home. Their grandparents live in Israel, so they Skype with them a lot. Anyhow, even on regular days, so that hasn't changed. But they do talk to them more often. What was it? Um, Trying to find it. Sorry. I guess they. Ah, here it is. Coronavirus through a child's eyes. So, what is the coronavirus? Eliana, what is coronavirus? I don't know. That's a really hard question. Eitan, it's a virus also known as COVID-19 that has flu-like symptoms and very contagious. That's the reason we're in lockdown. Um,
He
how many?
certainly seems to have a more detailed understanding than you.
Yeah, a little bit. How many days have we been in lockdown? Eliana, 293 days. Years. Eitan, since March something. Do you want to go back to school? Both of them, yeah. Um, what do you think we can do to get rid of the coronavirus? Eliana, eat the virus. No, kill the virus. Eitan, develop the cure faster and prevent it from spreading by staying at home. Is mommy a good teacher? Both of them said yes, but both of them had to think a little bit too much before they said anything, so I'm a little worried. Um, how did the coronavirus start? Eliana, stop asking me hard questions. Ask Eitan. A man in China ate a bat with the virus on it and he got infected by it. Unaware that there was a virus there, he goes outside and the virus spreads until eventually the doctors noticed it. They didn't know it was very dangerous, and a few months later, like 3, it's already gotten super bad, like pretty much everywhere, and then global pandemic. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So are you enjoying lockdown? Eliana, no. Eitan, no. Okay. No, maybe a little. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they seem to both have he seems to have more of a grasp of what's going on, but they both seem to have a fairly visceral reaction to what's going on.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, she's 5, so obviously I did not expect her to know about flu-like symptoms, etc. But
Yeah.
um, they are they basically they don't like it any better than anybody else does, but I think they've been very very good at adapting to it. If you Last week Eliana said that she's homesick, and I said, "What do you?" Adar said, "What do you mean? You're already home?" She says, "No, I'm sick of being at home." Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think a lot of people feel like that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there anything else that you'd like to add, talking either about the synagogue, the community, or your family?
I think we got it pretty much covered.
Okay, well, thank you very much for participating, and
No
we
problem.
appreciate it. Okay.